All right. For those of you who are back with ELRC 7334, we have Chapter 9. So this is designing, implementing, and evaluating career development programs and services. Now, you have already learned about program evaluation in other classes, so this is a quick recap, a refresh, because really designing, implementing, and evaluating programs for careers is very similar to any type of program in school counseling or in clinical mental health. So there are 10 steps of career guidance program planning that were given in this chapter. They wanted you to state and describe how to evaluate the effectiveness and be able to design and implement your own career planning program. Some counselor roles in program planning: advocating, convincing others of the importance of career planning, coordinating with department heads, teachers, employers, whoever might be involved. I would have parents participation, helping to deliver services, design and development, designing services by following the program planning process. The first thing that Niles would have you do, Niles and Harris Bowlby, is define the target population. Who is it you serve? Is it elementary students, veterans, college students? Is it people who are in their mid-career? And then identify their characteristics. And of course, this is with a broad brush, because even if you think you know somebody's demographics, you may not know anything about them. All right, step 2, determine the needs. So think about the needs of the population that you are targeting to serve. So this is really, really important. We want to think about groups that might need equitable services and thinking about how are we going to find out what services they need, because we may assume we know, but we really need to look at data. So that can be data that already exists that shows certain groups. For example, women are underrepresented in STEM. All right, that's not really debatable. You can just look at the numbers. But you can also, if you aren't sure if a group has a particular need, you could send out a questionnaire. You could use knowledgeable consultants. You could review the needs of the basic environment. That's what they do in Dubai. They decide what their workforce needs are, and then they design their programs to meet workforce needs. Review national and state guidelines and review career development theory. Is there one you're going to base your program on? And if so, why that one? And is it good for the populations you're serving? You want to write measurable goals and objectives. So an objective is a clear statement of a desired outcome, and it should be measurable. It means that the results can be measured and quantified in some way. Okay, so writing objectives forces counselors to specify what they want to accomplish and lays the basis for content and evaluation. I always say start with what is it that I want my client to be able to know or do based on my intervention. Format for writing objectives. By the end of this, participants will be able to, and it could be something like identify skills, learned in-home management and state how to describe them in a resume, identify jobs in which these identified skills can be used, write an attractive resume. Okay, so these are 3 very short, well-written objectives because they definitely are measurable. Now, did I say that they're well-developed career interventions? Not necessarily, but if you have a reason for this type of curriculum or a reason that you want to implement this type of intervention for a certain population, that's fine. Determine how to deliver. Are you going to offer workshops? Are you going to do groups? Is this something that you're planning to do with events? Are you going to deliver it web-based? I apologize. And then determine the content. So once you have your objectives and you know how it's going to be delivered, then you can start to develop that curriculum, because the curriculum for, let's say, a small group doing small group counseling is going to look very different than for a one-time event. Determine who is qualified to deliver the content. You want to staff time in order to design and deliver this program. Think about the equipment and materials you're going to need to use. Do you need certain facilities? For example, if you're going to run a group on financial literacy for seniors in high school who are trying to determine the best post secondary program for them, then you're going to want to think about what types of financial literacy materials are you going to be using. Will it be web-based? Will there be pencil and paper kinds of things that they need to do? Will they need access to certain types of information in order to create, let's say, a budget? So just thinking about stuff like that. And then where are you going to host? What facilities? And do the facilities cost you anything? And if they do, is it going to cost something for your client? You want to begin to promote services. So you can have an advisory committee that helps with that. Or if you're a clinical mental health counselor, and let's say you just wanted to run a career group, maybe you have several people with the same issue, then yeah, you could certainly either have a committee there at work that helps you to find clients to attend your group, or maybe you reach out to certain organizations that are going to be supportive in making referrals. In step 8, you're going to deliver the program and think about the time and energy spent on long planning cycles, and is it resulting in a high quality end product? Then in step 9, you're going to ask yourself, did the program produce the outcomes stated in the objectives? How can the program be improved? What information should be provided to supervisors and other stakeholders? I just did a program evaluation for an NSF REU, which is a research program for really low income students who are already in chemical engineering, and they want to possibly go into some either graduate school or some type of industry or entrepreneurship. And so I looked at the goals of the program and wrote both a quantitative survey, which had about 78 items, I think it was. And then I did 2 focus groups to follow up to evaluate the program, and looked at how the data from the survey matched or did not match the focus group data. So that's some ways that you can evaluate. You can use questionnaires, like I just mentioned, the survey, exit interviews, pre-posts, experimental design. I use a lot of pre-post, especially for workshops that I give. Those of you who have helped with any of the prize programming, you know that they do a pre-test and a post-test every time that we are covering new content. And then you want to determine if participants are reaching a predetermined objective that you had, and how you can improve services. Different types of evaluation can be used, formative and summative. I actually did a formative evaluation of the NSF REU program, and then did a summative. So I was looking at them mid-cycle through the program, and then at the end to see what concerns popped up, and then at the end, had they been addressed, and how did people feel about the program? So some steps in planning evaluation: decide whether to do formative, summative, or both types of evaluation. Identify the learning attitudes or behaviors to be measured. So that could be knowledge, attitudes, behaviors. Identify the sources of evaluation data. Now, if you're doing a group that involves depression, you might be using the Beck Depression Inventory. So maybe you're doing a group with people who have career concerns and it's based on being depressed. If it's trauma related, let's imagine that you're working with a group who has PTSD, and maybe you're going to do some measures related to PTSD. So even though you're not trying to necessarily impact PTSD, we would hope that there would be some benefit for that mental health concern related to the career. Qualitative, perceived value of services, and then quantitative, collects and reports numbers, like number of attendees, Who reported? And how certain are they now about their career choice? What percent are planning to go on to a post-secondary education or onto a post-secondary option? Outcomes must be compared to a desired standard, such as the following: either their goals of the individual clients, measurable objectives set by the program, some type of guideline or standard. So any of that could be benchmarks. And we want to use the results of the evaluation to improve the services. We want to give feedback to people. I'll give you an example. I just talked about the NSF REU program. There were several workshops that participants didn't feel were useful. They didn't like them. So my suggestion is don't bring those back next year. Replace it with something different that was suggested by these participants. Roadblocks to evaluation can be staff being afraid of negative results. I always say, don't be afraid to hear the bad because it gives you a chance to think of, like, oh, how would I fix this? Some people just believe, well, my work can't be quantified or evaluated. And that's one way to look at things. But I would say we're in an era where accountability is just a dominant theme in counseling and education. And so you're probably going to have to, at some point, show your effectiveness. And that's going to need to be in some type of quantifiable form. Time is always insufficient, so evaluation is given low priority, but it really should not be, particularly if it's tied to funding. And then revise the program. Remember that nobody is ever perfect on the first delivery. This takes a lot of time and practice. So we want to revise the program, gather information to find out what would be better for the next time, and then make notes about changes that you want to make, and then revise it. All right. So all of that should have felt kind of like a refresher. And I'm looking forward to being back for the next video.